will put his email address in the chat, just so you have that to refer to later. Thank you again for your attendance. And with that, we will start our meeting, and I will turn the meeting over to Laura Lloyd, the Alameda County Project Manager. Laura?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to our participants for being engaged and participating in today's Disparity Study meeting, community meeting. This study really does underscore the Board of Supervisors' commitment to doing whatever is in our control or their control for equitable procurement. And the study is an additional tool that the board, county administrator, and departments will use to kind of right size our practices and programs if the study indicates that some changes need to be made. So again, I want to thank the board for their commitment to diversity and equity and procurement. And I will turn the meeting over to Susan Muranishi, County Administrator, for a welcome.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome to everybody. Thank you all for joining this afternoon's community meeting to learn more about the county's disparity study, our small, local, and emerging business program, as well as our procurement department. Mason Tillman, our disparity study consultants, will be providing a detailed overview of the study and its methodology that will include a review and analysis of the county's payment data and vendor utilization over a 3-year period. And while the county analyzes our payment data and monitors our utilization on a regular basis, providing reports to our board's procurement committee, the disparity study will take a much deeper dive and provide us with an outside analysis and tools that the county can use to enhance our procurement policies and programs to meet the needs of the county and provide equity and access for our local businesses and diverse communities. Mason Tillman conducted a similar study for the county in 2004 that really helped shape the county's current SLUB program and enhanced our procurement policies, including new programs that we implemented, like the Enhanced Construction Outreach Program and our Bond Assistance Program. The current study is expected to be completed in the spring of 2022 and will help guide further enhancements to our procurement policies and programs, streamline our processes, and promote opportunities for greater participation by the diverse pool of businesses in our region, including small, local, minority, and women-owned businesses. We really appreciate your interest and participation, and we encourage your feedback. With that, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce Alameda County Supervisor David Halbert, who serves on the Board of Supervisors Procurement Committee, along with Supervisor Miley, to make some opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Susan, and thank you to Mason Tillman, and thank you to Laura for being the project manager for this very important project, this very rewarding and fulfilling project. It is all of our desire that we have a fair and equitable system of operations in Alameda County. That means that when we are deciding who to give contracts for services to, that we are reviewing applicants to find the very best applicants that we can find, irrespective of race or any other qualification. We want the very best talent for the very best cost that we can find. We know, however, that that is easier said than done. And we know that in our society that there are occasions where maybe some people that are giving contracts have a bias in one way or another. And so we want to make sure that we are understanding our processes, that we're making it very clear that there's no discrimination to be had when it comes to giving contracts and procurement of contracts, and to make sure that we measure ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to that. So I want to thank you for attending this session. Your commitment to understanding us and to helping us be better as part of this project is commendable. And you have my commitment, and I speak for, I believe, everyone on the board, that we are committed to supporting and providing fairness to our small emerging local businesses, small local and emerging business SLEBs, that we are committed to ensuring a fair process, that minority and women-owned businesses have a fair shake, and that we're providing the resources to them to help make them better if they have a gap in talent, that we can help them, that we can help make sure that they are paired up with perhaps a good partner that can help them as well, but also to make sure that the right companies can get the right projects, that you have the opportunity to compete with others that that maybe in the past you haven't been able to. So we're going to, this project will uncover a lot of learning for us. It will be learning that we will use as facts to inform our decision-making process and our processes. And more importantly, we're going to measure ourselves, because if we can measure ourselves, then we can optimize our performance. And so I know that the contract and procurement team has not met for quite some time, but rest assured, make no mistake, it is back in operation. Supervisor Miley and I sit on it. We have regular meetings. We will continue to have regular meetings. We will make progress, and we will hold ourselves accountable to that. So again, thank you for participating today, and I look forward to hearing the final results, and I look forward really to actionable progress where we can see successful companies get the projects that they compete for, that they earn on a fair basis, that they're treated fairly, and that we in Alameda County can be served by those people that live in our county as small, local, emerging businesses. So thank you all for being here. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mason Tillman, I think, or back to the project manager, Laura Lloyd. Thank you.
Hello again, and I would like to acknowledge that Supervisor Miley did participate in the earlier meeting today, and he sends his regards and appreciation for your engagement in this topic. Supervisors Miley and Hobart, as well as the rest of our board members, President Keith Carson, Supervisor Chan, and Supervisor Valle, are all equally committed to this issue. And your participation today is important, because as the county administrator pointed out, part of this study is an analysis of the county's utilization of minority and women-owned businesses. But that is being compared to the availability of minority and women-owned businesses in the marketplace. So Mason Tillman is going to be reaching out to you and a lot of other businesses to see if you've been engaged with business with the county, and if you haven't, why not? So measuring the availability of businesses in our community is essential to a study that really represents the county's participation levels. So thank you again for your participation today and your engagement on this issue. And I have the pleasure of introducing Mason Tillman's project manager and president, Eleanor Mason Ramsey. She holds a doctorate degree in anthropology from the University of California, Berkeley, and a baccalaureate degree from Hunter College, New York City, New York. As president of Mason Tillman, Dr. Ramsey directs the firm's disparity studies. Under her leadership, Mason Tillman has managed 144 studies. And I think she'll correct me a little later, because at the time that this bio was written, it was 144, but I believe that number has increased. Dr. Ramsey was instrumental in developing the firm's Croson study methodologies, which she'll talk about more in her presentation, which includes the creation of statistical models to account for disparities. Dr. Ramsey has over 30 years of experience in core affirmative action services. She has evaluated and designed minority and women business enterprise and disadvantaged business enterprise programs for states, cities, counties, special districts, transportation departments, airports, and public school districts. She has also formulated employment goals to ensure equity in all facets of public contracting. Her knowledge of these equity programs allows her to formulate effective public outreach efforts, including media attention and community attendance at public meetings and hearings. This is in order to develop community awareness, consensus in MWBE and DBE participation. I would also like to introduce her colleague, Don O'Bannon Esquire. He is outside legal counsel for Mason Tillman Associates. And he is outside legal counsel for this particular Alameda County disparity study. He holds a Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Virginia School of Law and a bachelor's degree from Dartmouth College. Mr. O'Bannon has provided legal advice on multiple disparity studies, including studies for Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach and Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission. Mr. O'Bannon brings more than 30 years of legal expertise to this position. Before his tenure with Mason Tillman, he served as Chief Legal Counsel for the Dallas Area Rapid Transit Disparity Study, the lead government attorney for the Northern Central Texas Council of Government Disparity and Availability Study, and also the legal advisor on the City of Dallas's Disparity Study. From 2005 to 2011, Mr. O'Bannon served as the Vice President of Business Diversity and Development at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. Mr. O'Bannon's application of U.S. Department of Transportation MWBE regulations is nationally recognized. So we are very appreciative to have such expertise working on this disparity study. I think our county administrator mentioned that Mason Tillman also bid for and was awarded Alameda County's disparity study in 2004. So it's somewhat fitting to have her do a follow-up to that study years later so that we can continue the progress of equitable procurement. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Ramsey.
Thank you very much, Laura. It is clearly my pleasure to be able to make this presentation to you this afternoon and want to thank you for your commitment to giving us some portion of your afternoon. Every hour away from your office is an hour lost for billing, if not depositing those revenue that you've acquired. So just for purposes of our background, want to note the fact that Mason Tillman, established in 1978 right here in Alameda County, and we have operated continuously in Alameda County since 1978. Our work is public policy research, and our team includes marketing professionals whose objective is to ensure that the equity services that we produce and the business affirmative action reports that we prepare are communicated in a way that our clients and their constituents understand and can use in a way that really will make a difference in the way public contracting is done and also the manner in which employment is done on those public contracts. And so that is part of what we have done and who we are. We have also performed a number of disparity studies, as Laura has indicated, and those disparity studies have been done for various jurisdictions. And we have not only worked for counties and cities, but we've worked for a number of states, including New York State and Texas, amongst the larger states where we have worked. And we have also been able to acquire our knowledge of public procurement from working for special districts like school districts and local transportation agencies, water districts. So we bring a wealth of knowledge that has aided us as we conduct these studies and also formulate the recommendations intended to increase the participation of minority and women vendors in government contracting. We have a study team of local consultants. Their involvement expresses our commitment to use local businesses, and it's been our practice over the years to always incorporate local businesses on our teams so that we can ensure that we are leaving some of the skills that we acquire within the community where we are working. And so it's our pleasure to have 3 very strong and able local consultants on our team. I would at this time like to pass the presentation to Don O'Bannon, who's our outside legal counsel and who brings the legal acumen, which has been essential in our interpretation of the law and its application in the various communities where we have worked. Don?
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Let me start out, first slide, please. Yes, the seminal decision, which really governs how these studies are conducted and really kicked off the disparity study industry for all practical purposes in the context of public contracting, is the decision by the Supreme Court in 1989 called City of Richmond v. J.A. Croson. Now, the City of Richmond case involved a 14th Amendment equal protection challenge to the City of Richmond, Virginia's MBE contracting program. The city had adopted a minority business utilization plan. It had a 30% subcontracting set aside for MBEs, and there was a challenge to that program by a contractor. And the Supreme Court, in reviewing the program and the evidentiary basis for the program, determined that the City of Richmond's MBE contracting program violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The significance of the decision is not so much that the City of Richmond's program was held to be unconstitutional, but that the Supreme Court changed the standard of review. That's the significant portion of this case. Because the Supreme Court changed the standard of review from a rational basis test to a strict scrutiny test. And a strict scrutiny test under, for lawyers, was strict in scrutiny, fatal in fact. In fact, there was some concern that the elevation of the MWB programs from a rational basis test to a strict scrutiny would really mean the death knell for all of these types of programs. But in the context of the Supreme Court's opinion, it made it clear that jurisdictions, states and localities, have the intrinsic right and obligation to address intentional discrimination. And they also have the obligation not to be passive participants in discrimination. And they can address either intentional discrimination or their participation as a passive supporter of discrimination. Next slide, please. It's important to note that the strict scrutiny standard, after it was enunciated in 1989, was subsequently also applied to federal cases under Adirond versus Pink. Federal programs would have to also meet the challenge of meeting a strict scrutiny standard. And that extended that same standard from the Richmond Croson case to Adirond versus Pena. So what is this strict scrutiny test? Well, there is a two-pronged inquiry in the strict scrutiny review. The governmental entity does have or must establish that it has a compelling interest in order to use race in its minority, in its contracting and procurement. In order to establish that compelling interest, it must have a strong basis in evidence. And a strong basis in evidence is demonstrated by having a statistically significant disparity between utilization and availability. Now, what does that mean? Again, let me repeat that. If there is a statistically significant disparity between the utilization of minority and women-owned businesses and their availability in the marketplace, the governmental entity may make an rebuttable inference of discrimination. So that is the essence of the compelling interest component. Strong basis in evidence must be statistically significant in terms of disparities. There is, as you see on the slide, a discussion of anecdotal evidence. It's important to note that anecdotal evidence is not a substitute for the statistical disparities. And there have been no decisions up to this point in which the quantum of anecdotal evidence is sufficient to be the predicate for race-based programs. But anecdotal evidence is significant in this regard. It will bolster the statistical findings of disparity. It provides, in the words of Justice O'Connor, it's the meat on the bone. It brings those statistics to life, and as such provides a basis for interpreting these statistics. And oftentimes, the anecdotal evidence is also a strong basis for the types of barriers that need to be addressed in recommendations. So that anecdotal evidence comes from those individuals who have either attempted to do business or have done business with Alameda County. And it's important that we receive your input regarding your experience in this regard. The next component, which is the second prong of the two-part test, is narrowly tailored. Next slide. If there is a basis, a predicate, a strong basis in evidence for race or gender conscious measures, it's important that that remedy be narrowly tailored. So in the context of this A&D study, you will have disparity findings by race, gender, and also industry. Dr. Ramsey will talk in greater detail about the four industry categories that are being examined here. But it's important to note that these subcontract goals, if there's a compelling, strong basis in evidence, the subcontract goals are limited to the ethnic and gender groups in each industry with disparity findings. Let me explain that. If you have a situation, there was a decision, Rothy in Roe, in which was a analysis of a DBE program in North Carolina. The statistical evidence showed that women were overutilized in the spend of the state for the DBE program. The court, Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, in reviewing that situation, determined that women, because they had been overutilized, could not be included in a revised DBE program and were excluded from participating in terms of goals. Now, obviously, they can still compete. There was no limitation or exclusion in that regard. But in terms of subcontract goals specifically, they were not eligible to be included based upon the disparity findings. It's also important to note that the goals are defined by the availability of the ethnic and gender groups who are ready and able to do business in the industry. So you have to be, there's a requirement in the law that you have to be willing. So therefore, it's important that we identify as part of determining the available pool of businesses, all those businesses out there that are interested in doing business with the Alameda County. Next slide, please. I would note before talking about this methodology that the City of Richmond case was a case which only involved MBEs, minority businesses. It was not a discussion of WBEs, women-owned businesses. With respect to women-owned businesses, there is a lower standard of review. Intermediate scrutiny is what it's called. And basically, under intermediate scrutiny, there simply must be a persuasive justification for the use of gender in the contracting process. So Croson was limited in applying the strict scrutiny standard to ethnic minority businesses, as opposed and did not address the issue of gender. And the gender cases, as the case law has evolved, have applied this intermediate scrutiny standard in the context of contracting. So now let me turn my final words on Mason Tillman's track record. There are two situations in which MTA became involved in litigation. It was retained by the Illinois Department of Transportation to conduct what is called a post-enactment study. A post-enactment study is basically what it says, that you have a program that's been enacted. They may or may not have done a previous study. And Mason Tillman was basically retained to come in after the program had been adopted and was being implemented to do an analysis, an A&D study regard of that particular program. That program actually was in the middle of litigation when Mason Tillman was retained to do the study, and Dr. Ramsey was qualified as a testifying expert. The long and short of it is that the Mason Tillman methodology, which was vigorously challenged by those who were seeking to basically declare unconstitutional the Illinois Department of Transportation DBE program, survived strict scrutiny. And that methodology was in fact upheld. In the lower court opinion, the justice wrote that Mason Tillman's study was critical in providing the strong basis and evidence that helped to establish the compelling interests of the Illinois Department of Transportation in implementing the program. The district court opinion was appealed, and Judge Hamilton, writing for the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, opined that the Mason Tillman study helped show that IDOT had a strong basis in evidence to adopt this program. So this opinion is a battle-tested through the courts test, which basically established that the Mason Tillman methodology in this context was able to survive a strict scrutiny challenge and was allowed by the court to be the predicate for the continuation of the IDOT DE program. In addition to that particular opinion, Mason Tillman in 1996 also became involved in a post-enactment study. And in that context, the court, after the study was done, approved the Mason Tillman study, and the City of Houston's program, which had been suspended prior to the work that MTA had done, was reinstated. So they were able to revive the program. Again, the MTA methodology withstood the test of judicial scrutiny, and was once again able to be used in order to support use of race and gender conscious measures in the city's contracting. I would note that California, in the prior session, we had a discussion or an issue came up regarding Proposition 209. California is definitely a different animal with respect to the interaction of 209, 14th Amendment and equal protection. And that's something that scholars will obviously have to deal with in terms of when it is or is not appropriate and what are the restraints imposed by the 14th Amendment and when would it be justified that race conscious measures would in fact be appropriate for a jurisdiction in order to deal with an equal protection. And with that, I turn the microphone over to Dr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Don. And it is my role to describe the study methodology. And that methodology begins with a definition of the study period. And here for this particular study, we are going to examine prime contracts that were awarded as of July 1, 2017, up to and including June 30th, 2020. All of the contracts awarded to for-profit entities will be divided or be segmented into one of four industries depending on the scope of the contract. And it will either be construction, architectural and engineering, other professional services, and goods and services. And so those are the four industries into which all contracts will be divided and in turn will be examined. So our utilization analysis will be an examination of prime contracts awarded during that study period, as well as the subcontracts awarded by the prime contractors. Don talked about active and passive discrimination. And active would be the contracts that the government awards, and the passive are the contracts that the government's prime contractors award. And so it will be our responsibility, conforming to the standards of CROSM, to ensure that we are able to receive, because the county will have and has extracted its prime contracts for that study period. And we have engaged in cleaning and organizing that data to ensure that the data provided has an award and payment date, sufficient detail describing the contract, so it can in fact be classified by industry. And so we will then assign an industry to each contract, and we will have to determine the ethnicity and gender for each prime contractor. We'll do the same for each subcontractor. And that work will involve a series of steps, some of which will be provided by the county's records itself. Others we will discern from certification documents. We may have to do internet research for some of the vendors, and our last resort will be actually calling the vendor to verify the ethnicity and gender of the owner. So that process is quite arduous, but very essential to ensure that each contract is classified correctly by both industry and ethnicity and gender, because the analysis, as Don has indicated, is going to be at the level of the industries, and within each industry, we will divide all of the contracts appropriately into one of five categories. It will be either an African-American business owner, a Hispanic American business owner, Asian American business owner, Native American business owner, or Caucasian female and non-minority male. So each of those categories will be, one of those categories will be assigned to each of the contracts. And then from that, we will define and determine the subcontracts awarded by the prime contractors. And that, again, some of that data has been extracted by Alameda County. Other data we will have to compile by reconstructing the subcontract records. And again, that may involve an interface with you as business owners. If you received a prime contract, you may be contacted to ask you to prepare and produce from your financial system payments made to subcontractors that worked on your Alameda County prime contracts. And then there is a determination of the market area, because it's within the market area that we will identify businesses that are willing and able to do the county's work. And the way we define the market area is to do an analysis of the prime contracts to determine the geographic location in which most of the contracts were awarded. And so that will enable us to then define businesses that are available. And so looking then at the availability analysis, there we're looking at willing and able businesses. They will be enumerated from several sources. One will be from a government source, and that source might be in fact, one of the sources will be the businesses that were actually utilized by Alameda County or bid to Alameda County unsuccessfully. Those businesses that registered as a SLEB business, ECOP business, or in any other way have expressed their interest in wanting to do business with Alameda County. And then there are non-governmental sources that we will look to help ensure that we get a comprehensive count of businesses within the county that are willing and able to do the county's business. And that will involve identifying sources such as business associations, trade associations, chambers of commerce. And this area, we would love for you to partner with us. And if you are personally or know of an association, that is Association of Business Owners, if you would in the chat indicate the name of that association and indicate whether you can assist us in securing a directory from the organization so that our identification of sources for willing and able businesses will be as broadly based as possible, given the extent of the size of our county and the fact that there are just many organizations, some large, some small, but we are seeking to find those associations. And there we will have to establish that any business that does not come from a government source is actually willing to contract with the county. So that's an assessment that we will make. And we also, because of cases that have been decided since Croson, there's been an emphasis on what is meant within Croson by willing and able. And so we will perform an analysis to assess the capacity of businesses that we enumerate. And that assessment will be done in light of an assessment of the capacity needed to do most of the county's contracts and the capacity needed to do some of those contracts. So we will need a full range of what capacity needs the county has in the contracts awarded during the study period and look to see what the capabilities are of businesses that we enumerate. And then these businesses enumerated through the various sources will be classified by ethnicity, gender, and industry. And it's with that information that we are able to calculate what is known as a disparity ratio, which is the actual dollars spent, which would be utilization. And here again, we're going to look at utilization of prime contractors and a very separate analysis of subcontracts awarded by those primes. And that disparity ratio, the actual dollars spent, will be divided by the expected dollars. And the expected dollars are defined by the percent of each ethnic group within the whole group of enumerated available businesses. And so that will calculate the disparity ratio. And once that ratio is calculated, the question then is asked, what is the significance of the ratio? The court said in that decision on the 23rd of January, 1989, that their expectation is that availability and utilization will be equal. They will be in parity. And if indeed that is the case, then there will be no evidence of discrimination and no basis for having an MBE program. If indeed the group is any one ethnic group is overutilized in any of the industries, again, there would be no need for a remedy because that would equal a fair and equitable set of circumstances. And if there is underutilization, but it's insubstantial, there again would be no remedy that would be needed. However, a substantial underutilization of women, and since Don has already indicated that women are subject to a lesser standard, then if it's underutilized, if they're underutilized and it's substantial, and that's any woman business enterprise, any of the groups, ethnic groups, or Caucasian women, then there would be a basis for under CROSN of having women business enterprise goals. And in turn, when looking at MWBE underutilization, if it is substantial, then a statistical test is applied. And if there is no finding of disparity, that underutilization is not statistically significant, or otherwise, if it is due to something other than if it's due to chance, then there would be no basis under CROSN to have a program for minority business enterprises. On the other hand, if it was determined in that statistical analysis that the underutilization was not due to chance, then there would be a basis for remedy. And CROSN said in that decision of the court that that would constitute a discrimination in the award of contracts. So that's the statistical environment that we are working with and the responsibility that we have in performing this study, that we must identify contracts awarded by ethnicity, gender, and industry, businesses willing and able in the marketplace by race, gender, and industry, and do a statistical analysis to determine if there is underutilization of any of those groups, and if that underutilization is statistically significant. The third component of the analysis, which is again one of the areas where we would like you to partner with us, requires us to provide anecdotal evidence and perform anecdotal analysis. And that information comes from business interviews. We are inviting you to join us and participate in an interview. So today, if you would so note in your chat as well that you would like to be interviewed, we appreciate that opportunity. You need not have had a contract to be interviewed, but have some insight and some recommendations that you feel could enhance the understanding of how it is to do business with the county. We will also, for those businesses that are not interviewed, we will have a digital survey that we will distribute to all identified available businesses. And there we're asking similar questions to those that are asked in the one-on-one anecdotal interviews, because that will provide us another avenue to insights as to how business is being carried out, what the practices are, as well as the policies. And so this qualitative evidence, which cannot be used to make a determination as to whether or not there is discrimination in the marketplace in the award of either prime or subcontractors, but this is a source for identifying patterns and practices in the performance of the procurement process and associated requirements. So we will use that for that purpose. It also informs the race and gender neutral recommendations. Best management practices are very important outcome from a disparity study because they can in fact result in changes in the way contracting is done, who in fact receives a contract, what the access is to information about a solicitation, what access there is to information if you're unsuccessful in your effort through the submission in response to a solicitation. So anecdotal analysis and the resulting recommendations are very important. And I'm sure each of you has some insight as to how you feel you could contribute to helping the county understand how it does business and what impact it has on you and your community. So just to give you an appreciation for some of the typical prime contractor barriers that we have elicited through the anecdotal work that we have done across the country in large and small communities, communities as large as New York City, Dallas, Fort Worth. We've been in many communities as well as a number of projects right here in Alameda County. So as you reflect on your willingness to participate as an interviewee, think about some of the things that businesses have shared with us that might reflect your experience or experiences of a colleague that you would want to invite to participate with us as an interviewee. So information about bid solicitations, formal solicitations which are published, informal solicitations which do not require public advertising. Many minority and women business prime contractors have indicated that that is difficult to obtain. And they have also noted that there seems to be in some communities an absence of standardized procurement processes as to when things are actually advertised, level of detail that's available, the description of the project, and even whether those procurements are information is made available informally before they are advertised, which is advantageous if you want lead time to prepare your response, either a proposal or a bid. Also, contractors have noted that there seems to be a practice in some communities to bundle contracts, to take small contracts, which may have been in their respective communities advertised as informal contracts to multiple vendors, that those contract opportunities are rolled into one master agreement with one prime contractor being awarded the contract and over the course of time being asked to do small projects which had then been bundled together, and that those agreements may go on for multiple years. We've had one client who has allows up to 10 years of renewals on its contracts. Again, this is the perspective that we have gotten nationally. Interested to know what the procedures are within the community and how they are perceived by you as a prime contractor. A matter of time to prepare a bid or a proposal is always also have been noted. And then there is concerns that expressed in some community that project resident engineers and project managers are excessive in their monitoring, and they feel a fact that they are at times discriminatory in the level of monitoring that they carry out when managing a minority or women prime contractor. And payment late has been identified by prime contractors that their clients are not timely in payment, and that has had an adverse impact on minority and women-owned businesses. There are also some typical subcontract barriers that have been noted by some of the vendors that we have talked to in various communities around the country, and that they have indicated that their bids on construction in particular have been shopped. The prime contractor receives notice that their bid was the lowest. They were the lowest responsive bidder, but they want the subcontractor to reconsider their bid and provide them with a lower dollar amount for the services without changing the scope of their services. There's also been concerns in communities around the country that the scope of work as a subcontractor gets reduced after award. And at times, actually, the scope is not performed by the subcontractor. In fact, the prime self-performs the work and there's no authorized substitution. And the performance standards, many minorities and women have argued, are disproportionate to the requirements, and they are represent disparate treatment of them relative to non-minority or female vendors. Late payment by primes, the subcontractors often refer to the prime floating its money and not paying them, but in fact using the sub's money for their own needs, and in turn creating significant delays in payments to subcontractors. And then change orders, which occur both in professional services and in construction, where the sub agrees to do additional work with an understanding that they're going to be compensated for it, and in fact find that they are not, and they are left to determine whether they create a express concern that might result in them getting no future work, or whether they attempt to get compensated, and it can be problematic for a subcontractor. And so there's also, particularly in the construction environment, the need to have sufficient notice to be mobilized so that you can have your workers available, you can have your supplies and equipment available. And subcontractors have noted that that just does not happen. They do not get sufficient mobilization notice. These array of events that have been identified in our various studies may ring true to you in your experiences, and if so, like you to think about being part of our process and joining us in this study and agreeing to an interview, because we do want to get as complete a picture as we can of what the practices are and the vendor's interpretation and perception of the policies. So ask you to agree to an interview, and so noted, please, in the chat, and to ask you in turn to complete the business survey. It'll give us a perspective, gives us a way to communicate with you. And then if you should have the time, ask you to share this presentation today with your colleagues, and invite them also to come forward and give us their time for an interview. Ask them in turn, if they are members of an organization, if they will assist us in securing those lists. And our presentation will be available tomorrow on the website. And thus you will be able to download it and view it again if you feel so inclined. But certainly it'll be there to share and for reference. And so our website will be, it is indeed Alameda County Disparity Study.org. So please work with us as a partner. You've given us your time today, and we look forward to being able to work with you further. So I would like at this time to give you an opportunity to learn more about how Alameda County does business and what opportunities it has that can enhance your ability to get work with the county. And I would want to then introduce you to Mrs. Waywitz, who is going to give you an overview of the small local emerging business certification process. Susan?
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see this presentation?
You sure can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks again, Dr. Ramsey. As she mentioned, I am going to talk a little bit about the Small Local Emerging Business Program. The county, we refer to that as the SLEB program. The county's SLEB program is a race and gender neutral program. It applies to goods and services contracts. Whenever possible, purchases up to $25,000 are directed to our SLEBs. For purchases over $25,000, certified SLEBs are eligible for a 5% bid preference. If the contractor is a non-SLEB prime contractor, they are required to subcontract a minimum 20% with a SLEB. And on our sealed bids, those are required over $100,000. Those are the formal bids Dr. Ramsey referred to. For goods and services, there is an additional 5% local bid preference that is available to eligible contractors. So with that, Just want to give a little background. The auditor's office actually houses the SLEB certification unit, and the program has been around since about 2001, I believe. The mission of the statement of the program is to develop and promote economic growth for the community we serve, foster the growth of the small, local, and emerging businesses, provide information about the county's procurement and contracting processes, as well as the opportunities that are available and information on the suppliers, the certified SLEBs, and to ensure the process is inclusive for all of our county residents. The purpose of the program is to ensure that all local businesses are given an opportunity to contract with the county, to advance and encourage inclusiveness, diversity, and economic development, to ensure that all of our businesses are provided equal opportunities to participate in our county contracts. As I mentioned, this program is specific to goods and services. That includes architectural, landscape architectural, engineering, environmental land survey, and construction project management services, along with other professional services. And the county also does have specific outreach programs for our construction programs as well. So within the SLEB program, the definitions that we are looking at when we're looking to certify businesses, first, all businesses have to be local. And a local business is one that has a fixed office with a street address in Alameda County for a minimum of the past 6 months, and a valid business license that's either issued by the county or within a city, or by a city within the county of Alameda. A small business is one that meets the local definition, and also meets the U.S. Small Business Administration, or SBA, size standard for its classification, and that would be in accordance with the NAICS code or codes for the services or goods it provides. An emerging business is a business that has been in business for less than 5 years, also meets the local definition, and is 1/2 of the size standard for the SBA classification. So the SLEB certification is a fairly simple process. It's basically 3 steps. The first step being to complete the common application or recertification application if you're already a certified SLEB. We share our common application to sort of help streamline the process for interested applicants with the Port of Oakland, the City of Oakland, and the Alameda County Transit Authority. While we have different requirements for certification, we share, once we receive an application, we can pass it on to one of those other entities if the applicant is interested in us doing that. The second step would be, of course, to submit the form. You can complete the form online. It's available on our website, which is a sample of the pages here. You can either fill it out online, or you can print the form out and sign it and send it in. The third step of the process is to review documents that will support the information required for certification. In other words, the locality and the size standards. And some of those documents include federal tax returns for the last 3 years, business license or licenses, current identification to support the local business, a deed or a rent or lease agreement, and then any additional information that may also be needed, might be requested. Some of the benefits of the to become certified, in addition to, I already mentioned the bid preferences, there is a 1 to 2 year certification term. Certified SLEBs are, reminded of when their renewal is coming due. They get a 90, 60, and a 30-day notice, as well as a notice upon the expiration date. And then once a SLEB has been decertified, they're also sent a notice to that. As I mentioned, the bid preferences, again, there's a total of 10% available. Eligible SLEBs are may receive up to 5% for informal bids over $25,000. And if it's a sealed bid, they may also be eligible for a local bid preference, another 5%, again, for a total of 10%. Certification status is maintained in our SLEB database. It's available to all of the county departments who are looking to source contracts, as well as to other public entities who we are aware of and we know also access that for their sourcing needs. This is just another page from our website. The certified slabs are and local businesses, they are posted and they're able to be searched in our database. You can search them by name or other information that you might have. And there are also multiple reports already prepared that you can select and choose from. This next screen shows what the report looks like if we wanted to search all of our certified small and emerging suppliers. They are sorted by alphabetically by name and include the business name, the contact information, including a phone number and an email address, as well as their business address, the type of certification that they have been certified for, small or emerging, the status, the certification status, including their certification number and expiration date, and then the NEICS codes that they have been certified to provide goods or services for. Each page comes up here with an indicator of how many certified slabs there are in this category for all the small and emerging. When this report was run, I can hardly see that, but I think it's 956. I think we're 960 something today. That fluctuates. Also, all of the slabs are and local businesses. You can export to Excel, so you can download that information. You know, for example, if you wanted to, pull all of the emails out, all of the email addresses out to use for sourcing if you were looking for a subcontractor, etc. Applications should be submitted to the SLUB certification unit, as well as if you need any information, of course, you can call us regarding certification. We have a dedicated email box. You can also send it to our address through the US mail or contact us on our direct line at 510-891-5500. Other information is also available if you don't have time to call us, but you want to look for other information, you can access our homepage. We have other information there, as I mentioned, including documents regarding contracting activities and links to other departments as well. So that's it. Thank you very much. Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, with that, I'm going to turn this over to Deetra Dillon, our procurement manager.
Thank you very much, Susan. Okay, my name is Deetra Dillon. I'm the procurement administrator for the General Services Agency of Alameda County. So the General Services Agency, the procurement department, we are a decentralized county, and that strategy enables county departments to complete procurements on their own. However, GSA procurement does manage some procurement of goods and services for clients, and typically they're more complex procurements for significant dollar values. We also run solicitations for goods and services that our county uses countywide. So when county departments do run their own procurements, they do follow the policies and procedures established by GSA procurement. We do conduct weekly outreach events that describe upcoming bid opportunities, and information about requests for proposals or requests for quote for goods and services can be found on gsa.acgov.org, or you can also go to Alameda County's website at acgov.org, and at the very bottom of that page, you'll find departments within the county, and you can go to GSA. So currently the county is prohibited by the California Constitution from using preferential treatment in public employment, public education, and public contracting on account of a person or group's race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. So when you go to gsa.acgov.org, You'll see on our page that we have a do business with us, and you'll find information about awarded contracts, closed bid, our policies. There's some vendor tips, and there's some do's and don'ts on there. My team and I worked very hard to go through that mistakes that we typically find that vendors have, and we placed a list on there. So that's a great tool for small, local, and emerging business information. We have a link to that, as well as construction, easy sourcing, upcoming events, and eGov subscriptions. eGov is a very good place for vendors to go, and they can subscribe and put information in about what their business does. And when we have opportunities that are a match, you'll be sent an automatic email notification about that opportunity. And the last slide, when you look up a request for proposal or request for quote, there is a calendar of events in each of those solicitations, and it will outline when the bidders conference is, which is always a good opportunity for vendors to figure out some of the specifics of the contract that is up for quotation. And there's a vendor outreach event where you can ask questions on any solicitation that the county or GSA is putting forward, as well as some other relevant dates and times for that particular solicitation. And thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Deetra. What we would like to do now is open up for questions. We've heard a lot of information up to this point, and would like to be available for any questions you may have. Again, if you are interested in participating in the survey, please put your contact information in the chat, and we will follow up with you. If you are aware of businesses or other organizations that would like to be a part of this process, please enter that information in the chat as well. If you have questions for us today about, specifically focused on what we talked about today, please enter your question in the chat with your name, your business name, and your organizational affiliation. And so we did have a question from earlier that came up during the presentation, and it's about the surveys. And this question is from Alice Sung. Will surveys be kept confidential? And if we agree to interview, will this also be kept confidential information? For example, results reported in aggregate or not identifiable by our name or firm name?
Yes, we will maintain the confidentiality of both those parties who agree to be interviewed and the specific interviews that are provided. The information is reported out by type of business. So it'll be reported out by a minority construction business owner said. And we are very mindful of the need to ensure that what is said does not in itself carry identifiers. So if there is a statement made by the interviewee about a particular department, we will also expunge the name of the department. So we're very mindful of the importance of getting comments from you as business owners, but not have it have any adverse impact on your ability to secure contracts with the county. So we are mindful of that and will honor that.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Keith Burbank. When do you expect the study will be complete?
Study is on schedule to be completed by February 2022, which would be this coming year.
Thank you. And so that was our last question from the chat. Seeing no other questions as they are being presented, thank you for your questions. And now, oh, wait, there's another question from Keith Burbank, Bay City News. What is the reasoning behind the county wanting to have a disparity study completed?
Hi, Keith. This is Laura Loy, the Disparity Study Project Manager. And to my knowledge, there has not been any allegations of discrimination. So just like in 2004, when the Board of Supervisors commissioned the first disparity study, the study is a tool for the county to use to look at existing programs and policies regarding procurement and see how those policies and programs can be enhanced. And although we have the utilization data at our disposal, because the county does regularly review the vendors that they do business with, we don't have the other piece of the pie, which is the availability of minority and women-owned businesses in our market area. So this study is going to help us to identify those businesses and the barriers to why we're not doing business with those businesses. So I see another question coming up, but that's a different question. So I hope that I answered your question. The study is an additional tool for the county to use in evaluating its procurement processes and its programs. So no, it isn't born out of a discrimination claim or any other nefarious activity. It really does underscore the Board of Supervisors and the county's commitment to leveling the playing field as much as possible within the confines of the law. And I believe that Mr. O'Bannon mentioned Proposition 209, so did Deetra Dillon, our procurement manager. So there are some legal parameters that put the state of California in a different box. I think Mr. Bannon said California was a different animal, and I totally agree. But even within the confines of legal restrictions, we wanted to reach out to experts to see what it is that we can do to better our process. So again, I hope that answers your question.
There's also a question, are we asking if we're talking about Alameda County Transportation Improvement Authority? And the answer to that is no, we're really talking about projects that have been awarded by Alameda County, but it will include projects awarded any place within the county, and it will enumerate willing and able businesses that are domiciled in any of the cities or unincorporated areas within the county.
Thank you. Can you give some more clarification on why women businesses are not eligible? Why women BEs, I think business entrepreneurs, are not eligible for business enterprises, are not eligible for SLED participation?
Susan, can you or Laura take that question?
I think the question, was it specific to certification? And maybe there was a misunderstanding, SLED participation. So the SLED program, while it is race and gender neutral, it doesn't provide a preference for, by race or gender, but all businesses are welcome and encouraged to participate in county contracts. I think there was some other comment maybe about women-owned businesses during your presentation, Eleanor, I'm not sure.
No, it may have been the discussion on the application of the Croson standard does matter as to whether or not it's a woman-owned business or a business owned by a person of color. And as Dawn indicated, that the particular decision, a particular challenge to the program of the city of Richmond was resulted in the decision that was issued by the Supreme Court that is now popularly known as the Croson decision. In that particular lawsuit, the challenge program was a minority business program, so that the decision that was rendered was a decision that spoke to the standard for operating a minority business program. That standard is higher, it's a higher legal standard than that which is required to operate a women business enterprise program. So if it's in that context, that doesn't affect our ability to study the use of women in any of the disparity studies. It simply says that if there is a finding of underutilization of women, it only needs to be substantial. It does not have to be statistically significant. So the standard for a woman business enterprise program is a different and a lower standard than for a minority business enterprise program. So it may have been in that context that I confused the presentation and led to believe that it was related to SLEB. But we will study women, use of women business enterprises and minority business enterprises.
Thank you. In terms of the study period, why pick a period for study? This is from Alice Sung. Why pick a period for study that may be impacted by the pandemic? Why not pick 2016 through 2019, for example?
Laura, you want to address that? There was a lot of internal discussion within the county about that.
Yes, so Alice, we did have a robust discussion about the study period. And ultimately, we deferred to the experts in this field. We recognize that some businesses may have been affected by COVID, and particularly during the last 6 months of the study period, which would have been January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. And our consultants, Mason Tillman Associates, said that they would be able to address that in the study. So I think we already mentioned that the study won't be available until February or March 2022. And we're already looking at data from 2017 to 2020. So in essence, once the report comes out in 2022, it's already 2 years behind the data that we analyze. So we collectively, with the consultant, made the decision to get the most current data, but do some accounting for the fact that some businesses may have been affected by COVID. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Next question, Debbie Ferrari. What about businesses that utilize a large percentage of minority workers and subcontractors and small business subcontractors, but they are not one themselves? How can they get credit if they are local and not small local? Local is not needed for the contractors are already local.
How does the SLEB program work in that regard?
Okay, so again, the SLEB program is race and gender neutral, and I'm not sure if maybe this question is related to a construction project, but for a goods and services project, you know, again, we encourage all businesses to participate. We are able to provide preference to either certified small or emerging businesses and local businesses on projects that are on sealed bids over $100,000. I don't know if that answers your question or not. As I said, there are construction outreach programs that are related to the construction contracts that have different goals, participation goals related to, you know, minority and women-owned businesses.
And it looks like Debbie clarified, she's talking about work other than SLEB.
Other than small local emerging businesses or goods and services? I'm sorry, now we have to chat back and forth. And
So, Susan, I wouldn't mind answering from a construction perspective.
okay,
So-
thank you.
Sure. So for construction services, we do other goals. So we have a local goal of 60%, small business goal of 20%, a minority goal of 15%, and a women's a WBE goal of 5%. So those are our ECOP goals for construction projects. For subcontractors, just to clarify.
Thank you. And this next question from Alice Sung, why are white female-owned businesses being studied as a group along with Black-owned, Hispanic, and/or Asian-owned businesses, but not any BIPOC women-owned? Did I misunderstand? So I don't know, Laura, if you want to grab that one.
Sure. So Alice, the study is going to not only look at women-owned businesses, women from all nationalities, specifically Asian, African-American, American, Indian, Alaskan Native, and Hispanic. So across the board, women businesses will be evaluated. So the BIPOC community is included in the nationalities that will be evaluated in the study. So the study is not looking at white women-owned business separate than any other women-owned business. They're all being looked at individually as well as collectively. And again, that includes Asian, African-American, Hispanic, and American Indian and Alaskan Native. So that would include the BIPOC community. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, that looks like the last question we have in our chat. Thank you for your participation and your thoughtful discussion. Now I'll hand the meeting back over to Laura Lloyd to give us our closing remarks. Laura?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the Board of Supervisors commissioned a disparity study in 2004, which was also, let me start my video, I'm sorry, which was also conducted by Mason Tillman, after which the county administrator convened an executive steering committee to review the study and the study recommendations. And I expect that a similar review process will be undertaken with the results of this study. And as was previously mentioned, the final study report is expected to be presented by Mason Tillman in February of next year. So with that, on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and County Administrator, I'd like to thank each of you for your engagement on this issue and your participation in today's meeting. And with that, meeting is adjourned.